Så där ja, då har de första personerna kommit. Kul att... Ska vi vända den här? Så där har vi vändningen. Hallå Isak. Hallå Otto. Allt bra eller?
Det är bra sagt, det är bra.
Ska det bli kul att åka till London eller?
Jag
Det blir... börja med att vinna på stryket, hade vi tänkt. Det blir spännande. Vi har en väldigt fin rad inne. Ha det gott.
Ja, jo, det såg jag. Men det är ingen sån som jag tänker... Ja, nu är den igång. Det ser ingenting. Ja, han är galet fin.
Mest
Ja. Så jag kollar vad de har för gubbar. Sen är det någon jag tycker.
så jävla sjuk frispark idag igen.
Så där, anlänt till flygplatsen. Så ser jag... Här är Isak. Här är Otto. Och här har vi Oliver. Fan vad gött, och här har vi en jättefin... Där har vi en jättefin Volvo. Åker vi. Så där har vi kommit igenom security-checken. Vi tackar så mycket för det.
Ska du inte lämna feedback?
Vi har lämnat våran goda feedback. Alla klarar sig. Otto, han har ju lite annat i väskan. Ska vi dra till O'Learys ta en bärs? Okej. Lite turbulens här i flyget.
Det är inte läge just nu skulle jag säga för turbulensen.
Det är inte läge med turbulens nu. Vad tycker du om turbulens?
Sorry?
Vad tycker du om turbulensen så?
Alltså det är lite roligt som en berg- och dalbana.
Ja.
Förutom att den inte sitter.
Så där. Nu har vi anlänt här. Otto och Tommy borta. Vi är i London nu. Jag vet inte riktigt hur det här kommer gå. Våran taxichaufför är inte jätteglad.
Satan, han kunde inte kommunicera på engelska i England.
Nej. Frågan är ju vart Tom och Otto till vägen. De klarar ju sig inte att ta igenom den här passport-grejen. Självbekänning, de klarar ju inte det. De är inte alla hästar hemma, så att säga. Folk tror ju säkert att jag är lite... Så där, då har vi kommit fram till hotellrummet. Hejsan. Vi fick ett 8-rum då. Det är liksom ganska litet för att vara ett 8-rum. Det är dubbelsängar. 4 stycken, tätt packade här. Så Otto och Tom sover på överslafen. Jag och Isak sover under. Har vi ett litet fint badrum här. En liten toalett. En liten dusch. Det är mycket fräscht är det. Men det är tajt. Det är tajt. Det hade varit jobbigt att vara 8 här så att säga.
Det är lite roligare att köra alltså, varv för andra backen. Gå med den jäveln.
Ja då.
Får man vara med? Får man vara med på en?
Självfallet.
Hallå. Är det mitt också?
Ja. Nu är vi på väg mot Stamford Bridge.
Ja, så stressade jävlar bredvid
Ja.
oss.
Jag
Jag går förbi backen. Jag tror de kommer få panik.
Ja, men det kan vi göra.
Och så på andra.
Nej, de vill se det.
Men då blir inga butiker nu, Oliver.
Vet du om de på vägen tillbaka va?
Ja, det är 2 timmar. Eller vad är det snabbt för? Störpa bort min boll.
Ska vi springa bort till Stamford Bridge för att gå på en arenatour? Ska bli ganska trevligt. Då ska vi jata täten då faktiskt.
Tar vi täten? Han tog täten för galleri på kameran. Vi har fel för galleri.
Jag är inte lika kaxig nu.
När planerar vi att vara framme vid Stamford Bridge, Tom då?
I deras tempo om en kvart.
Om en kvart i deras tempo, ja. Enligt Maps då, en timme eller?
Ja, hej. Så är det.
Vi får ta och börja jogga snart.
Vi fick ju ett förslag här. Man går lite butiker på vägen.
Ja,
så personen som också går med förslaget.
Ja.
Han ber mig väldigt hårt och påstår att vi håller på att springa till Stamford Bridge. Vi försökte Harrods och Cambridge Street och alla de här. Där det väl finns butiker.
Ja.
Så,
Nej, men jag tycker vi tar det lite som det kommer.
Ja.
Tom tar täten och jag ska visa vägen.
okej, ta det som vi kommer.
Nu har vi
aldrig kommer fram.
lite butiker framför oss. Kanske kika in där borta.
Jag säger inte det.
Har vi tagit oss till de finare gatorna. Det är ju bara Ferraris, Lambos, Mercur, Bentleys. En Supra såg vi jävligt fet.
Det är någonstans där de rika bor. Checka det här. Innan.
Fast man kan inte riktigt filma in i boenden. Det blåser på bra, gör det. Men snart är vi framme, hoppas jag. Det blir trevligt. BMW M-sport butiken. Lite röda bussar.
Vi ska till...
Då har vi anländit här till någon sorts Chelsea-grej här. Vi ska på rundtur.
Det här blir fett. Jag vet inte riktigt hur man kommer in där.
Nej, jag vet inte.
Oliver trodde att arenan var där inne.
Arenan skulle ju vara här, men den ser ganska liten ut i mina ögon. Så vi får väl se vad det här tar vägen.
Match reports. You can see they've got small screens in front of them, and they use these to make slow motions and replays so they get the stories correct. Very shortly we go down into the press room, but before we do that I'll just give you a little bit of background about how the club and how the stadium began. Because in the beginning Stamford Bridge wasn't a football stadium, it was an athletic stadium. built in 1877. By 1905, the owners knew the way forward, the way to make money would come from football. So we have a stadium, we don't have a team. We offered it to our neighbours, Fulham. They're just a couple of miles down the road. They didn't want to come because they said the rent was too high. So we had to build our own team. In March 1905, the two owners of the stadium, some other businessmen, they met across the road in the pub. It's still there, it's called the Butcher's Hook. Back then it was the Rising Sun, and that's where they met to start Chelsea Football Club. So that was March 1905, and 6 months later we played our very first game here. Our first game was against Liverpool, and it was a pretty good day for Chelsea because the score was Chelsea 4, Liverpool 0. Sadly, that was an exhibition game. It was a game just to open the stadium. We don't have a very good record against Liverpool, so we're going to take that even if it was just a friendly game. Besides football at Stamford Bridge, we have 2 hotels here, and every summer, June, July time, and you'll know a bit about this, when the tennis tournament is played at Wimbledon, which is what, 5 miles from here probably, 4 or 5 miles, the tennis players stay in the hotels here, they practice, and then they take part in the tournament. So in June and July we see a lot of people in white kit getting out of vans and cars with rackets under their arms. Everyone's looking for the tennis courts. We haven't got any. The players are just here to take part in the tournament. We also have at the end of this stadium a music venue. It's called Under the Bridge. And over the years, we've had a lot of high-profile performers here. We've had Beyonce, Robbie Williams, Justin Bieber, The Jam. They all played here at Under the Bridge. We will be building a new stadium. I'll tell you a little bit about that shortly. And when we build a new stadium, we get rid of the hotels and we also get rid of the music venue. So it'll be football only from then on. As I say, we want to build a new stadium here. The capacity at the moment is 40,000, but it's too small. We sell out every game, and we know that we could have many more supporters come to the games if we had a bigger stadium. However, it's a very difficult thing to do because behind us here we have a railway line, and behind that stand there's a railway line. Behind the stand over here there are homes for disabled soldiers, and behind this stand there's a main road, a major road. We can't go anywhere outwards. We also can't go higher because there's an Act of Parliament that says you have to be able to see St Paul's Cathedral, which is in that direction, from a point in Richmond Park, which is over there, and we're right in the middle. So we can't go higher. We're going to have to lower the pitch by about 10 metres, and then that's what he's done. And then when we do that, we can have a stadium for 60,000 fans. Of course, that will take a long time to build. It will take 3 to 4 years to build the stadium, and while we do this, we can't play our games here. We have to move away, and that becomes difficult because we won't play our games outside of London at Manchester or Birmingham. Our 2 nearest clubs, Fulham and Queen's Park Rangers, their stadiums are too small. There isn't enough money in the world to make us play at Tottenham, so we're not going there. So it's beginning less and less possible to find somewhere to play. Twickenham is the stadium where they play rugby, but the rugby people, they're a little bit like that about football. They don't like football, they think we're hooligans, so probably we'll end up playing at Wembley, but there's been no decision yet. When we move there, it will take 3 to 4 years to build the new stadium. I'll just tell you a little bit about the pitch. Today is a strange day because normally we would see lots of lights on wheels, and we move them around the pitch, and they simulate or copy sunlight, because in London in the winter we don't get a lot of sunshine, the sun doesn't get high enough, so they're like sunray lamps to help the grass grow. Down here you can see in the goal area down there, sort of tent type things, and we put ultraviolet light into those again to help the grass grow, make it stronger. The pitch will stay like this for the rest of the season. Only a few years ago, maybe even as recently as 12 years ago, by this time of the year that pitch would have been mostly mud. There wouldn't have been a lot of grass on it, but now with the new gadgetry and technology that we've got, the pitch will stay like this for the rest of the season. I'm not sure if you can see it from this angle, but certainly when we get into the dugout, if you look at the pitch, it's not flat. It's got a camber on it, and this will allow the water when it rains to drain off into the gullies so that we can recycle the rainwater. Just waiting for the word that this press room is clear. So when we get the word.
Så jag får se.
Dock att inte ha skaffat en.
Jag vet.
Med en sån puff.
Det finns ju att köpa till, men jag var lite över det. Oj, oj. Här får man in. Jävlar vad fett.
Det tar en yttersta då.
Ja, men jag tänker...
Okay, so this is our press room. It's where the journalists spend a lot of their time. And, they're here for a long time at Stamford Bridge, so we have to look after them, we have to feed them. They have a very nice buffet meal at the back of the room. And for European games, we will normally give them food that reflects the country of the team we're playing. So if we're playing a French team, they get French food, an Italian team, Italian food, and so on. They have their own bar over here. It's a free bar, but there's no alcohol. No alcohol for the journalists. Basically, we don't like them to get drunk and write rubbish. They do that without using alcohol, so why provide any for them? They'll watch the game from the press box, and then after the game, maybe half an hour or so after the game, they come into the room here and they begin to interview the coach. Normally about half an hour. If the coach feels he has to calm down, maybe for a bad refereeing decision, or if he's tearing into the players because they've not done what he asked them to do, but normally it's about half an hour. And he comes here, answers some questions, maybe bringing with him a player, the man of the match, or an important goal scorer. And then once that's completed, they go off to write their pieces for you to read the following day. The post-match press conferences are held here at Stamford Bridge, and the pre-match conferences are held at our training ground at Cobham. Cobham's about 20 miles, 30 kilometres from here. It's where the players go to train, it's where they get treated for their injuries. So really the players only come into the stadium on match day. They do everything else down at the training ground. So what we're going to do now, we're going to give you a chance to come up here and take some photographs where the coach sits to answer the journalist questions. And similarly, once we hear that the other group have moved on, we're going to have a look at the next part of the tour. But first, come up here and take some photographs. They stand in the corner over there, you've seen them being interviewed by the TV people, so this is where they do it. But it's just a small interview area. We're going to move into the away changing room.
Ja, det här är sletet.
Okay, so take a few photographs, and what I'm doing now, I'll just tell you about the visitors changing room. Around the wall you can see names of some of the famous players that have played here over many years. On the wall over here, these are players that came for Premier League games. On this wall here, Premier League and the old First Division games. On this wall here, these are players that came for friendly or exhibition games, and these players would have come for Champions League games. Unfortunately, we are missing a shirt. It was stolen the other day. It was Ronaldo's shirt. It was always next to the mirror because we knew that would be where he would like to sit so he can look at himself in the mirror. But we don't have the shirt any longer. It's gone somewhere where we don't know. This is a very basic changing room. It's not the best you'll ever see, but that's not for us to help our visitors with. We do some other things here besides the changing room being not so comfortable. Over here in the corner is the tactics board. That door has to be kept open on match day, and there's a large security person with it as well, so you can see they won't be able to see their tactics. Also, for those of you that know Claudio Ranieri, he was the coach here in the early 2000s. And when he arrived at Chelsea, he thought that our home record was disappointing. We didn't win enough games here at Stamford Bridge. So he decided to get some help from a sports psychologist. He came and had a look at the changing room and said we should make some alterations here. We should lower the ceiling. We should make the lighting softer, more gentle. We should make the temperature higher. We should make it warm in here. This would make our visitors feel a little bit sleepy, take their edge off the game. So we made the changes, and from then we played for 4.5 years without losing a game here at Stamford Bridge. We went for 86 consecutive Premier League games without defeat, and that's a record in the Premier League by a long way. So the sports psychologists obviously helped us. It also helped us that we had a very good team at the time. But even now, we don't lose many games here at Stamford Bridge. We've lost one against Manchester City this season, and we were lucky that it was only 1-0 because Manchester City absolutely took us apart, really. So this is our visitors' changing room. We're going to look at Chelsea's changing room. If you have good eyesight, you might notice the difference between the two changing rooms, but I'll leave that to you to decide. Let's look at Chelsea's more.
Men nu är det nog.
Fast ja, det är samma tråkiga bänkar liksom.
Fast det är mycket flashar. Det är inga stora bänkar.
Nej, de är inga pixis.
När jag blir snurrig av
So in the Chelsea changing rooms, the players sit in what we call friendship groups. They might sit with players that speak the same language or come from the same country. However, they are expected to try to speak English in the changing room because if they talk in their own languages, there may be problems about what's being said. So they should try to speak English. However, that depends on how good their language skills are. For example, Kovacic speaks 5 different languages. Lukaku speaks 7 different languages. For those of you that remember Diego Costa from a few years ago, he was here for 3 years. Unfortunately, after 3 years, I don't think he could even say hello in English. So it just depends how good they are in different languages. In the changing room, they sit in their groups. So on this wall here, these are players that would have come through the academy system. They've known each other since they were about maybe 8 or 9 years old. We would normally keep together Havertz, Werner and Rudiger because they're all German players. Similarly, we would put together Marcos Alonso, Azpilicueta and Saúl because they're all Spanish players. And then we have the individual players such as Kante from France, Lukaku Belgium, Kovacic Croatian, Ziyech who's Dutch Moroccan, 2 Brazilian players, Jorginho and Thiago Silva, but of course Jorginho plays for Italy. And then we have the goalkeepers over here in this corner. The goalkeepers have a different training system, a different coach to the outfield players, and outfield players always think the goalkeepers are a little bit crazy, so we keep them over here in the corner. Have you got your photographs for this bit, or do you want a little bit longer? Because we're going to have a look in the... if on the match day the weather is very cold or windy or raining, the players can begin some of their warm-up in here. It's normally got some bikes and exercise machines here, so they can do some work here. On these tables here, after the game, they will find warm food, snacks and so on, so they can have something to eat before they disappear. And then the third reason is something we don't want to have to use it for very often, because if we've had a very bad first half and the coach wants to try and improve things in the second half of the game, he gets them in here, the team in here. It's got a screen on the wall and he goes through some tactical changes or personnel changes if he needs to improve our performance in the second half of the game. So that's what this area is used for. Over here we have obviously the shower area, and at the bottom we have the ice bar. So players that have picked up small bumps or bruises, they can sit in there for just maybe a couple of minutes because it is very, very cold. So this is the area for slight improvements, minor injuries only. This area here is it looks like someone's kitchen, but it's actually the medical staff's area. These cupboards are full of cups and saucers or plates. They have gauze and plasters, scissors, this sort of thing in, and the players can have their rub down and massages here as well. The referee's changing room is just along the corridor. We don't go in there because, well, we can't get in there anyway, it's locked, but it's a very small changing room. But as you would expect, it's a very nice changing room. We have to be kind to the referee because we hope he will give us a penalty. The away team, we're not bothered about them. but the referee we have to be polite and pleasant to. And in his room he has a small button. About 5 to 10 minutes before the game begins, he presses the button. There's a bell on the ceiling, same thing in the away changing room. That sounds, and that's the signal for the players to get into the tunnel to start the game. So that's going to be our next stop. We go into the tunnel, and from there we're going to go into the dungeon. But let's go into the tunnel. 2 words about Tottenham, but we've got some children here today, so we're just going to have the music, no words.
Alla vakar på det. Ja, det är helt
But there are still some things to show you. If you're at home and you see a game on television from Stamford Bridge, the pictures would mostly come from cameras at the top of the east stand on the blue platform, and the black seats below, that's where the commentators sit to tell you about the game. If you have Sky television at home, or possibly BT, their studios are at the very end of the stadium in the corner. There's 2 glass windows. And that's where people like Jamie Carragher or Gary Neville or so on, that's where they tell you about the game. I mentioned earlier that to our right, that's where the away fans sit, so we just have a very small partition there to stop any problems between Chelsea fans and our visitors. We used to have a lot of problems in English football with fans getting onto the pitch, fighting and this sort of thing. And Chelsea were probably right at the top of those fans anyway. So the man that I told you about earlier, Ken Bates, he came up with an idea that he would put a metal fence around the pitch to stop the fans getting on the pitch. Then he decided that that wasn't enough, that he would put electricity through it as well. The local council, they decided that he'd gone too far, and they said he couldn't do it. He had different business interests, and one of them was that he was a dairy farmer. So he went back to the council and said, well, I can do it to my cows, why can't I do it to the fans? And they said, well, we're not interested about your cows, you'll have to take it down. So they made him take it down. So now we are very close to the pitch, but we don't have any problems with the fans. They probably all got electrocuted or something. If you came into the stadium behind this stand here, you might have seen the statue to a player. His name was Peter Osgood. He was voted many years ago to be our greatest ever player. I think that's stretching it a bit. He was a very good player, but I wouldn't say he was our greatest player by a long way. But he was a very good player. He died 16 years ago, and his body was cremated, and his ashes are underneath the penalty spot down there. So we have a statue outside, and his ashes below the pitch.
Fast han klev kvar.
Ja, Isak börjar tröttna på att det går lite långsamt här. Jag har köpt Oyster Cards, letar efter rätt linje här. Lite knepigt. Men du löser det här, va Tom?
Ja. Jag ska hem och sova middag.
Du ska hem och sova middag, sen ut och spela. De ska ligga hemma på rummet sen. Ja, kör.
Om man borde boka det behöver man.
Är det?
Och Kalles farfar hade.
Han är ju gärna om när jag är så jävla. Tryck upp en kamera. Men det jag är pressvan, det är lugnt.
Hej! Ja, den är ju äkta.
Den har han förbannat.
Antagligen.
Vad tror du Salat tycker om det?
Mohammed?
Ja.
Nej, jag gick. Alltså,
Jaha.
de har fått spisslig kritik för det här.
Alltså ärligt då?
Ja, de raidade ju varandra jävla land. Alltså bestämt. Det finns saker.
Man kan det då. Säger kompani.
Ja, men.
Det är klart att det blir ingen.
Ja, eller hur? Så att om det. Fan vad stort.
Han hade det där. Det är så här.
Alltså ni ser det.
Jävlar, det är rätt mäktigt. Det är som att gå in i den här kartan. Jag tänkte det här fast på sidan.
Ja, men det här är
Alltså, Peterskyrkan var ju fan.
man får inte riktigt med på bilden.
Fast jag har ju wide angle.
Ja, men då
Alltså, jag får ju ändå med mycket.
alltså det är om någon ställer sig vid väggen. Ska jag gå och ställa mig vid väggen nu?
Vadå väggen?
Då ser man så här in comparison.
Ja, men man ser ju då.
Nej, jag tror det är jävligt bra.
Så där, då befinner vi oss på British Museum. Vi ska börja kolla lite mumier i Egypten. Så det ska bli kul. Här har vi gubbarna. Vad tycker ni om byggnaden? Är det fint?
Spännande, det är stor.
Ja. Jag filmar lite på det. Då var vi klara på museumet för nuet. Vi har kollat lite Asien och lite mumier och sådant. Vad tycker du?
Nej, det är häftigt. Jag har ju sett det här förut.
Ja.
Men vi fick ju lite stress igenom för Tom var inte särskilt imponerad. Han tyckte det var för mycket intryck.
Ja.
Men jag är nöjd.
Ja, en gubbe med lite bättre kamera med. Men den här funkar fint. Ja. Tröttnade du på museet lite, Tom? Ska jag inte säga så?
Nej, får man inte.
Nej. Otto, vad tyckte du då?
Spännande, men lite långtråkigt, men helt okej.
Ja.
5 av 10.
Ja. Museum ska inte vara jättekul. Nu ska vi till Artmuseet i alla fall. Men det ska bli spännande. Fika lite först. Ja. Kopp kaffe i Londons gator. Trevligt. Hej då. Så där, vi har tagit oss in på konstmuseet. Det är...
Utan biljett faktiskt får man väl säga.
Ja. Vi har gått här i 10 minuter nu. Jag och Otto har redan börjat tröttna, men vi ska se om vi hittar något lite roligare än den kristna delen. Så det blir spännande. Van Gogh hade ju varit trevligt att se.
De springer därifrån, de blir livrädda.
Message pour les supporters lillois. Vos cars vous attendent dans la rue Imperial Road. C'est seulement à 10 minutes à pied au sud du stade. Vous serez coordonnés et encadrés. accompagné par les attendants et la police. Nous vous prions de vous diriger vers la sortie maintenant et de commencer à aller.
Så där, vart håller vi hus, Isak?
Jag gillar mina hemkvarter kan man väl kalla det. Sky Garden här.
Sky Garden.
Lite mer exklusivt.
Jo,
Lite före kön och så vidare.
vi ska käka 3-rätters nu.
Går ut. Ser du Londons gator från en bird's eye view som man ser här i landet.
Precis.
Det finns trädgårdar där uppe. Och vi sitter sen och äter.
Trevligt, trevligt.
Och nu ska vi ta en tur utåt. Ser ni här Themsen, Tower Bridge, Röda tornet, museer. Vi ser vad vi har mer. Där borta har vi ju London Eye, House of Parliament, Big Ben.
Du kan den här stan.
Här har man varit. Business här har man ju. Fin utsikt här. Mycket på det här stället. Det är asgott. Det är ketchupen som jag bryter ihop.
Jag bryter ihop vad är det för men chili var det ju.
Det ser väldigt gott ut, måste jag säga.
Vet du, jag går som så här. Vi hade varit på Coop. Där är en rolig historia. Vi hade varit på Coop så här. Så skulle vi ut från Coop. Tom körde. Så kommer det en ska in. Och Tom skulle ut. Och sen, alltså, de så här läste av varandra.
Så där, sista dagen här i London. Vi har checkat ut från hotellet, lämnat in väskorna. Ska till London Dungeon. Tycker du att det har varit en bra resa hittills?
Riktigt bra resa. Jag är väldigt nöjd.
Ja,
Det är
vad kul.
riktigt trevligt. Jag vill säga
Tycker
Särskilt
faktiskt.
Five Guys.
Jag håller med dig. Five Guys var något över det vanliga. Otto, sista dagen, hur känns det?
Bra. Det är
Ja, fort har det gått.
roligt.
Ja. Tom, någon kommentar? Inga kommentarer på Tom. London Dungeon, eller käka lite frulle nu sen London Dungeon. Jag har precis varit på The London Dungeon. Väldigt spännande, lite skådespeleri, lite läskigheter, lite tortyr och liknande. Vad tyckte du, Isak?
Det var väldigt häftigt. Jag var väldigt besviken att jag inte blev så här framdragen.
Ja, jag blev ju framdragen, satt på en stol och lite så. Vad tyckte du, Otto?
Det var bra skådespeleri. Jag är glad att jag inte blev framdragen för jag blev det i vanliga fall.
Ja, Tom?
Mäkta imponerad.
Mäkta imponerad. Ja, Tom var mycket nöjd med
Så
det här.
grejen att han står framför kameran och säger det är...
Ja,
Kameran lite väldigt ofta.
vackert.
Nej men det här var...
Då har vi tagit oss till tåget på väg till Stansted Airport. Väldigt trevligt.
Det är från Tingrot löste, eller vad säger du?
Vad sa du nu, Otto?
Världsklassplatser som jag läste.
Väldigt bra platser. Med laddare och grejer som vi sagt tycker om.
När de stänger av tåget så slutar de ladda.
Ja.
Så...
Det var ju
Min
lite
glapp
surt.
också. Kan vara.
Nej, för min också.
Min laddar inte heller. Ses på flyget.
Inflate your life vest until you're outside the aircraft. Before takeoff, please do the safety card located within the area seated, as it includes important safety information specific to this aircraft type. It is essential that cabin signs and instructions given by the crew are followed. I'd like to remind you that smoking is not permitted anywhere on board. Your hand baggage must be securely stowed in the overhead locker or underneath the seat in front of you, and it must not block any outlet exits. Now please ensure that your seatbelt is securely fastened, tray table folded,
Tjena.
seat back in upright position, armrest down and window blinds open. For your safety, we recommend that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times.
Så där ja, då var vi hemma på Landvetter igen. Väldigt trevlig flygtur. 1,5 timmar tog det ungefär.
Trevlig polis.
Står en jättefin Volvo. Kul att se. Ska Melvin hämta upp oss här. Lite kullagerreklam här med SKF.
Hur många Five Guys tror du han ska ha?
Melvin? Nej, jag tror faktiskt 0. Hoppas på det.
Han vill ändå ha shake-shack.
Ja, Melvin tar betalningen i shake-shack.
Var det 400 färger?
Fin XC40.
Nej, innan så 550. 550.
Sådär ja. Snöget gör det.
Är det den sibiriska vintern som faller då?
Det är den sibiriska vintern.
Våran bra nu med.
Ska se om vi...
Segla längre.
Trampar du? Här kan du stå där vid blåset va? Vem vet?
Ungefär.